when I was a kid, I used to trust Panorama because I like to know what was going on in the world. I didn't really like the news very much. The news often featured things in the Middle East wars and stuff like that, and famines, and often those horrible images. So I wasn't really a fan on the news ever, but Panorama seemed to relate to problems in the country. And I when I was younger, I went to America, and I didn't feel that there was this sense of trying to fix everything. It just they didn't have that same sense, and I was trying to figure out like why I thought England was better, because when I was younger I did think that England was better. The weather was much better in America, but I thought English TV was so much better, and I guess Panorama was actually one of the reasons why I thought it was good. So I had a lot of trust in it because of that, and I guess I still have the memory. For some reason, my memory of when I was younger seems to be stronger than some things that I've done recently. But I came across a video the other day of Tommy saying that Panorama slated him, and I didn't actually get to the part where he was talking about Panorama. I think I got distracted about things he was saying, and I can't even remember if I finished that video or not. But I just come across. I was talking about housing market today, and it's interesting because Panorama's on, and it's all about the housing market. And I guess I just want to kind of talk about it because I now don't actually trust Panorama. I used to, and I guess I didn't really have a reason for it to not trusting it, but I don't agree with this thing. I mean, this is what I used to believe. This is kind of a typical thing that I used to believe. I'll just show what I mean.
This isn't really what I was expecting. I was expecting, cocktails on the lawn. This place is huge.
And I'm Anita Rani. I'm going to just take a step back. Andy, no.
Let's go through the problem. Where is it?
Building 1.5 million homes. Which was the wage. To uncover some of the challenges to building 1.5 million homes.
We all know you're not supposed to build on the green belt, but what actually is the green belt?
Do you ever just want to throw your hands up and say, what's the point?
Hitting the target will need a level of house building we haven't achieved for decades.
Yeah, our generation, they want things handed to them. Unfortunately, this is hard work.
So can it be done?
We're not going to build baby build because that is the only way we tackle the housing crisis that we're facing in this country.
I'm not going to stand here and say 1.5 million is doable because it is going to be very, very difficult.
Deep in the English countryside.
Well, I won't go into too much about it, but basically it was just saying how there's a housing crisis, and our only solution is to build baby build, or just build more and more and more houses. And I'm thinking, I used to believe that there are obviously too many people, not enough houses. People are living in tiny and tinier flats, and we can't afford anything, because the demand for houses is too much. But now I've actually realised something very crucial, which is that the people here in the country don't own these properties. It's the banks that own the majority of them. I don't know how many percentage, what is the percentage of houses that are not owned by an individual owner, but rather owned by, I suppose, companies. There could be loads of pension companies, people, companies that have like a pension fund, and they buy a bunch of houses, rent them out, and they use it as a type of pension fund. I can understand that because you want to have a pension fund, and when you're older you can't really manage it, so if you have like a company that can do that for you, then I get that. But banks specifically, how many, like, if people are only able to buy a property because a bank is giving them a huge loan, well, how many people have this huge loan? Because if I don't even know what the percentage is. Like, if it's something like as high as 50% of the people in England do not own their own home because the banks own 50% or more, then what is the percentage? How much does the banks own of the houses? Because if the banks are the ones who own up all these houses, of course there's no housing. Why? Because the banks are buying it all. Like, if the banks own over 50% of the houses, and if the banks were actually said, banks, you're not allowed to own this many houses because why the people want these houses and the people don't want to. We can't afford rent. Now, the reason why we can't afford rent is because houses are very, very expensive. Now, why are houses very, very expensive? Oh, because banks are loaning out huge amounts of money, which is increasing the market so that no one can afford a house, and we have to take out gigantic mortgages. So we're getting deceived on this false belief that the reason why house prices is expensive is because of the demand for them, but it's not. The reason why the house prices are expensive is because more and more people are taking out gigantic loans that they can't pay back for another 20 years. They're saying that the average house now has gone up 10 times more than people's salary in the last 10 years. So however much you had to work, like back in 2008, I couldn't get onto the property market. I couldn't get a job. I couldn't get anyone to take me seriously, and I couldn't get a job, so I couldn't make any money. But I needed to buy a property in London, I needed about 250. I could not do that. I might have been able to come to Birmingham, because back then Birmingham was about 40,000. But I didn't know that it would be that. I didn't know that I would have to do that. Anyway, I ended up waiting a couple of years. In that process, the 30,000 or 40,000 pound houses jumped to about 100,000. I was only able to get on it because my mum helped me with half the cost. But I managed to get on because I had help. A lot of people do not have this help. But if the only reason why the house has gone from 40,000, I think it was about 7 years. There's an old lady here, and she bought it for about 40,000 from the council a few years earlier, and it sold for 105. So it's gone up like £80,000 in such a short time. Had I made that much money during those probably years? No, I don't think so, because I was on the dole for 3 years. So for the 3 years I was on the dole, I couldn't get any kind of job. I couldn't get anyone to take me seriously. I couldn't even get volunteer work. I applied for so many things to just do free work, and I couldn't get one. And when I did find a free work place, some sort of film company, mild company, small company, I found out that 50% of the people, over 50% of the people, had been working there for 6 months and they'd never got paid anything. So this is the sort of thing that I was facing. Hence why I was thinking that this housing market of having all the houses in London, or the flats in London, going for 250 million, that was completely insane for me. But you know, those houses, those ones that were 250 back then, they're now $1 million now. They're 2-3 million now. So this is a completely false market. And there is this sort of deception that, oh, there's not enough houses, we just need to build more houses. And just like, no, you need to get the banks to fuck off and stop giving people this money, because this is the reason why houses are too expensive. It's not because there's not enough houses, it's because the banks are buying them all. You know, if there's like 1,000 houses in a city and the banks say, right, I'm going to buy 900 of them, and I'll set the price, I'll set the housing market, I'm going to make these houses so expensive because I own them all, I can do whatever I want with them. So we're going to say that you're not going to live there unless you pay us £1,000 a month, and they're forced to say, oh, £1,000, yes, okay, we'll pay that. And then you've got these deception, or the liars that make false allegations about how, oh, there's not enough houses. I mean, the houses are so expensive because everyone wants them. No, it's not. It's because the bankers have fucking come in and said, I'm not going to give you this unless you give me a huge amount of money. I trusted Panorama, and then Tommy Robinson said that you shouldn't trust it, and I was like, I don't think I actually got to the part where he was talking about why you shouldn't trust it. But I've come across this, and this is basically about building on the green belt. So we're going to get rid of the green belt, which I guess is an area that you shouldn't build in because of wetland, because of natural resources, because of the birds, and probably I think water. I think there's a lot of areas that might flood if there was a big downfall, which happens often in England because it rains a lot. If there's a big downfall, these are the areas that are probably going to get attacked, or they're going to get flooded. I think that's what a greenbelt means. I don't really know what a greenbelt means, but yeah. And so what? Not only are the bankers trying to hug 90% of the houses whilst making out that the reason why house prices are expensive is not because they're hugging 90% of the houses and only offering it to, only selling these houses providing you pay 20 or 50 times more than you actually have. You know, okay, yes, you're earning 40,000 and yes, 10 of that goes towards tax, and then you've got 10 towards road tax, but you've got 20,000 a year. So if you give me that 20,000 a year, I'll give you this house. You know, it's not because of them doing that to all the properties. No, it's because there's not enough houses. You've just created a completely false economy. And this housing bubble is going to crash at some point. And I've spoken to loads of people 10 years ago. There was loads of clients that all thought that they weren't going to buy because they didn't believe that this was going to get higher and higher and higher. And I don't know how many people I spoke to, but there was a lot of people that thought that. And yes, they are going to find it difficult because, if people are buying a property and paying high mortgages just because they don't want to have to pay the rent, well, I can understand that, but why would they have to pay so much? Why are these so expensive? If you lived in a property for 30 years, you've paid off the build, you've paid off the bricks and the water that cost to make it, and the land that you bought 30 years ago. And so why would you go on to sell it for £1 million? What did you do to earn that £1 million other than just live in a nice house? It's so annoying to think that there are people that are living in a lovely, gorgeous house. They don't have to work because they've got money in their bank, or maybe they can just take out a loan of 50,000. You can live off quite a lot. Things are costs of products though are actually going up and up. I don't really buy full price items. I usually only go to the reduced section. But if you buy it at full price, you will be paying quite a lot in London these days. But you don't need huge amounts of money to live off. And then to think that there are people that bought a £1 million house, and now these £1 million houses are actually worth 12 million. So what, they've made £11 million for doing nothing but living in a nice house. I mean, this is incredibly unfair. And the reason why this has happened isn't because there's not enough houses. No, it's because the banks have bought up 90% of the. I don't even know what the percentage is. I can't say what the percentage is. But yeah, do I trust Panorama? No, I do not, because you're not reporting on this properly. You're making out that the reason why, because there's not enough. There's not enough. Okay, the bank's going to buy that up too. You can make another billion houses, and then the banks can just buy it because they're taking up all this huge rent money from people. They've got a huge amount of money, so they can just buy up more houses, and then again there's not going to be enough. Then you can make more, and then we can start knocking down all the woods, and then we can start getting rid of all the wetlands and killing all the swans and stuff like that. Yeah, we can do that, and it's always not going to. I don't know. I'm really angry because they're not even reporting the problem. It's not the truth. The truth is the reason why the housing market is expensive is because the majority of people do not own their homes. The people who do own their homes are the banks. And the reason why people are investing into the banks is because the economy is collapsing, and we don't know where to invest. We want to invest wisely. And right now the housing market seems to be the only thing that people actually need. Houses, we can't invest in shops or businesses any longer because people just come in and just take whatever they can and then get out. Crime is going to get worse. As this divide is happening, the poor is going to get poorer. The rich who had a £1 million house and now have a £12 million, they're going to get richer. Or technically, though, they're only going to actually access this money if they sell their house. And if they sell their house, the government can come in and say, wow, it's £12 million more than what it was 10 years ago. So now we can take 3 million of that and if you want to buy a house, of course, because all the houses are expensive, you're going to have to spend more on whatever property you end up buying. And I don't know, but I think there's so much. This is such a corrupted system, and the belief that all you need to do is build more houses is total nonsense. What you need to do is you need to stop the banks from just buying up 80%. If I said I wanted to buy 50% of the properties in England, of course there's not going to be enough houses from anyone else. Why? Because I'll set the market. I'll be the one responsible for saying how much the rent is, and other people are going to start saying, well, that's how much that they're getting, so we want to get the same. And it's not about how many houses you have, it's about who owns the houses. But at the same time, I understand that maybe this has happened because maybe this has happened because there's a whole bunch of people that are not my people, and this housing market crash is going to tell the difference between those who can't sense the truth. If you don't think a housing market crash is around the corner, then I think you're not awake to what's going on, or you're not spiritually awake to the fact that this nexus is going to have a mass exit of people wanting to go to another planet, and therefore I don't know. But I'm looking forward to the day where I'm exposed as being Christ. I'm looking for the day where people are told about me, and then they're allowed to write something. And I would love to know what kind. I really, really want to know what kind of religion people have. And it's not just my religion. Like, how many Wiccans are there? I'd love to know that. How many people when they were younger chose Wicca, or felt excited about going through spell books and trying to think, can I fly? Can I levitate? Can I change my eye color? Can I make my hair blonder or something? Can I improve my IQ based on a spell? You know, I'd love to know how many people chose Wicca. They might not have been open about it back then, because you kind of had to hide the fact that you were all practicing Wicca. But I'd love to know how many people practice Wicca, and because I would say those are more likely people that are my people. I think if you have a similarity to me, you probably would take an interest in magic, and so I'd love to know how many of those people. I have no clue who my people are. Technically, it could be anyone that believes me, but I would love to know how many Wiccans there were in the country, because I always felt like it was like a secret group of people that were hidden, and so I think seeing that witch video that I posted today has kind of reminded me of memories that I had from when I was practicing Wicca, and thinking like it was like a secret group of people that you need to know. And I don't know, but I used to trust Panorama, and I really don't now, because they need to know the facts about why the housing market is so expensive, and that's because the banks own it. Hence, the banks can rent it out at whatever cost they want. I guess that they would probably keep it low because they'd want the houses to be full. But yeah, if people are investing in the banks because they don't want to invest it in business, because they think that, I've heard 90% of businesses crash and stuff like that. Why would you invest it in a business if businesses are just going to crash? But housing market is just going up and up. So I think more people have been investing in that. But because more people are investing in it, the housing market has just gone up and up and up. And so the only way to stop it isn't to make more houses. No, it's to stop people from just investing in it. You know, a nice world is where people actually say, you know what, I want to offer something to the community. I actually want to spend my time doing something, being with people, communicating on a sort of ground level. I would love to work in a spa or something like that, you know, in an entertainment centre, work in a kind of theme park or something. I know some of the jobs are low, but you probably get a good sense of friendship and connection. And so the idea that there's huge numbers of people that have literally just bought a bunch of houses and now just renting them out and just making huge amounts of money from doing nothing but renting out. Renting out is actually quite hard though, because things do break. But there are some places where you can have a tiny small studio flat rented out for about £1,000 a month, and you're making £1,000 a month for doing absolutely nothing is very good. But yeah, right now to buy that property, you'd have to spend an absolute fortune for it, and it's because, you know, people should not be allowed to take out big giant loans, and I think you're stupid if you have. And maybe the reason why this has happened is because it's supposed to see who the stupid ones are, the ones who would take out a gigantic loan when it's unrealistic, and you can no longer, you know, buying 10 years ago was a good idea, even though I didn't think it was. I thought it would have been too late 10 years ago because it was already too high, but I guess because I was living in London it was really high for that reason. But yeah,